Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. This public hearing is now called to order. The time is 5:03. The Committee on Public Safety, Border Safety, Military and Veterans Affairs, Mayor's Council of Guam, Infrastructure and Public Transit is conducting a public hearing today on Bill number 260-35, 262-35, 263-35. For the record, and in conformance with Section 8107 and Chapter 8, Title 5 GCA, the first public hearing notice was sent out on Tuesday, January the 21st, 2020, to adhere to the 5 working days requirement, and the second public hearing adhering to the 48 hours notice was sent out on Friday, January 24th, 2020. And in addition to these notices, were sent to all media and posted on the Guam Legislature's website. We will now begin with Bill number 260-35 COR, sponsored by Senator Tina Rose Munya Barnes and co-sponsored by Senator William M. Castro. Do you want me to read the bill?
I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Ask me to speak.
Go ahead, Madam Speaker.
Sizos Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on Bill number 260-35 COR before we hear testimony. This bill, Mr. Chair, is an act to amend Section 40127 of Chapter 40, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to providing for the expedient appointment of members to the Municipal Planning Council and safeguarding the invaluable role of the Municipal Planning Council. And Mr. Chair, I do know that this bill and the 2 other companion bills that are going to be publicly heard tonight, in any way, if Bill 260-35 can be incorporated, I would also support those efforts. This bill, as introduced by myself and my colleague, Senator Will Castro, which is bipartisan support, is a safety net which ensures that the role of the Municipal Planning Council is secured. The Municipal Planning Council, Mr. Chair, plays an important role in every village. There should not be any reason that a Municipal Planning Council, which is the MPC of every village, is not appointed. No one could have foreseen the circumstances that we're currently dealing with right now in the village of Jonia, and we hope that this does not ever happen again. No village should be left without leadership, and this law will allow our government to act expeditiously during unanticipated times. Out of the 19 villages, the village of Jonia, unfortunately, was the only village that did not appoint their members of the Municipal Planning Council. And this bill is to ensure that this does not happen again. I ask for the support from this committee and my colleagues on the 35th Guam Legislature to support Bill 260-35 COR. But Mr. Chair, also, again, hearing the companion bills with 262 and 263, I ask that if this does not get out, that it get incorporated with the other bills. And I can also ask that my testimony here this evening get supported and be appended to both the other bills that are being heard today. I would really appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before we go any further, I just want to recognize some of our my colleague here, Senator Shelton, to my farthest right, to your left, Senator Talina Nelson, our Vice Speaker, and Senator Terlaje, and also Speaker Tina Munya Barnes. So, if there's anybody that is going to present testimony, you can come up front. Angel, you're here. Melissa, you're here, the president. If you're going to present a testimony to Bill 60, you can come up front. 260.
Good afternoon, Mr. Oversight, Speaker Barnes, Madam Vice Speaker Nelson, Madam Secretary Amanda Shelton, Senator Luis Terlaje, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano. If you don't mind, I'm Angel Sablon, the Executive Director of the Mayor's Council of Guam and Citizens. If you don't mind, these three bills basically all have to do with an MPC, and one of them has to do with a vacancy of a mayor or vice mayor. But instead of repeating ourselves on each bill, we'd just like to give you our comments on all of them. For Bill 260-35, introduced by Speaker Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes and Senator William Castro, on the Municipal Planning Council vacancy, every village shall have 10 members as a base, and every village that has 1,000 more over 10,000 in population can get an additional member. My concern with this bill is the appointment to be made with the approval of the Mayor's Council of Guam by resolution and with the advice and consent of the legislatura. So let's say there's one member that has not been appointed for so many days by the mayor. After 60 days, that person that's appointed is going to go through the legislative process while the other 9 never went through it. Does it mean that this one member has to provide all the documents just like any other appointee that has the advice and consent of the legislature, provide a financial statement every year, and be subject to all this other stuff that all other appointees that require advice and consent of the legislature? So I just don't think that you're going to have anybody that would want to be appointed to an MPC that's going to go through this process where the other 9 members do not, or how many that are vacant. My suggestion would be let the mayor appoint 10 members plus 2 alternate members. So in case you do have a vacancy, you take the alternate member to come and sit on that MPC. And they're already there. They're attending the meetings. They're not voting, but they're attending the meetings as alternate members, so we can amend the Municipal Planning Council vacancy section 40127 to make it that way. We wouldn't have to go through this process. Because if we wait 60 days and we wait for another, we don't know how long before the legislature provides the consent and advice, that MPC will be not functioning. For how long? I believe that if we just amend this section of the law and put for an alternate members to be appointed by the member along with the 10 members, I think that would suffice in filling a vacancy. That's my opinion.
Mr. Director, remember several years ago when I was mayor, the formation of the Municipal Planning Council simply state no less than 7 Municipal Planning Council members, no less than 7. So if we go with 10, even if you're missing one, that one person that is missing doesn't have to go through this process. So still, if you have no less than 7 members, then that's intact. A decision can be made.
Yes, Mr. Chair, but the statute now says 10 members, shall appoint 10 members. It's been changed.
Yeah, that's right. If the law stipulates 10 members, then we're going to have to. So, if, for example, you don't have 10 members, so the decision cannot be made in as far as a temporary mayor? If you only have 9 members?
That's why I'm saying if you have an alternate member, you're going to still have 10 because you use the alternate member. Without having to go through this process of submitting the name by resolution and then having the legislature advise and consent. It just needs an amendment to the statute.
Okay, if that's your recommendation, I think I have to agree with that. And so that we don't have to go through the process again, but alternate member. Yes. Mayor Savares, do you have anything? And Mr. Director, before, we're going to include that, 2 alternate members. We're going to change. We're going to include 2 alternate members for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name is Melissa Savares, Mayor of Dedido and President of the Mayor's Council of Guam. Most of us have the 10 members, and it's not including the mayor and vice mayor in cases where we have the 7 villages that have vice mayors. We have 10 municipal planning council members, and then if you have a mayor and vice mayor, that would make it 12. In the case where you had mentioned voting members, it takes 7 to have a quorum. So when you're voting on items, action items on the agenda, of course you need to have at least the 7 votes to pass any of the action items on the agenda. And, you know, Senator, you know that Municipal Planning Council, there's work to do when we have our meetings. There's zone changes, zone variants, sponsorships, approval of our non-appropriated fund accounts, our financial statements, even what we do with our budget as far as our budgets that we allotted, budget allotments that we get. So those are things that Municipal Planning Council members discuss during meetings. And to have 10 members on the council, and then the mayor himself or herself can be the 11th, and if you have a vice mayor, the alternate member. But in cases with populations over a certain number, we are allowed, in Dedido's case with 45,000 people, I can have 40 members on my municipal planning council, and so can the larger villages. But the challenge with that is that having an established quorum when we meet, especially when, you know, we need to act on passing resolutions for zone changes or approving our financial reports. So we keep it at the minimum. I have 12 members on my council. My members come from all over the village, representing different areas of the village, and that's how most all of our councils are designed or implemented. You know, we choose members from the community, selected by the mayor and vice mayor. And Angel's absolutely right. You know, if one member should not be able to continue their service for the 2 years, if we have to come to the legislature, the other 10 were appointed with a letter, and most of them accept. I've had one that after their appointment, they said, you know, I'm going off island for my job and I won't be back for the rest of the year. Can you find a replacement? It was easier for us to find a replacement after that 1 month. We don't have to wait the 60 days. for somebody in that same community, that same neighborhood, that same area of the community. And of course, we sent a thank you letter to the one that was leaving and then appointed another member from that area of community. But for them, if that happened to us in the middle, after an appointment and everyone was sworn in, it would be difficult to have just that one person come through the public hearing process here and having to turn in all their necessary finances as what would be required by this.
Can I ask a question? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the comments coming from the both of you. Again, this was in an effort to rectify an issue that has never happened before, and one of the suggestions that was spoken or was said at the Municipal Planning Council, the MCOG meeting, was that maybe there would be, if the Planning Council wasn't in place, then hold that mayor to some sanctions, like do not release the budget allotment, do not, give him that authority. And I know it's shunned upon, it's frowned upon, but based on the existence, because 18 villages had the MPC members, the law specifically says that the mayor shall implement. So in the case of that absence, and we hope that that never happens again, the mayor's council right now can immediately ask for the change without approval from, and so those members can choose that member to go up to the governor's office. Am I right? If they had to choose a mayor, it's the MPC who chooses that temporary name for that vacant position. Am I right? For the mayor's slot or the vice mayor.
Right now, the statute says that the MPC shall send a name, vote majority, but that's my question, and it's in the Vice Speaker's bill, shall be filled by a majority vote of the MPC council. But is it from the MPC that they're voting members there, or is it anybody in that municipality that meets the very general criteria? It doesn't say again. So the previous, and I know the governor has submitted her own bill, and in the previous statute, when the governor had the authority, the MPC would submit 3 names to the governor, and it's non-binding. She can choose from one of those names, or she can come up with her own, as long as they're from the municipality.
And that has been done in the past.
That has been done in the past.
And the statute was changed a couple of terms ago after that. Am I right?
Yes, when we added this 240-day thing, that's when it was all changed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, just being able to bring the history out, Mr. Chair, and working with our colleagues to really find a solution to see how we can help the mayors and the Municipal Planning Council members, because we know the viability and the criticalness of the checks and balances that need to be in each of the villages. But more importantly, it's the MPC members who help the mayor and the vice mayors literally work on all the issues and concerns that happen within their village.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that with one of these 3 bills that we can come up with that positive resolution.
Yeah, unfortunately, this case is an isolated case because it doesn't happen in the other 18 villages, as you know. And that's why when you came and spoke to at our meeting, I had made the suggestion that this is mandatory, it's not if you want to. And the mayor of Jonia did not. But if we had something, this bill probably won't be necessary if we make another one that makes it punitive in nature. I mean, we have statute now that fines directors and deputy directors if they don't complete their reports or if they don't submit their reports in a timely basis, they get fined a certain amount of money. In this case, Why don't we just put an amendment to find a mayor? If you don't appoint your members within the 30 days that you're asked to by statute, either you explain why you can't, or you pay a fine. Or I'll freeze your budget. Give me the authority to freeze that municipality's budget, and they cannot spend it until they have an MPC in place. And I'm sure that every mayor, incumbent or new that are coming on in January of next year, are going to follow the statute if they know they're not going to get any money, or if they know that they're going to pay a fine. And in this case, we do have orientation every time there's pre-inauguration. Every mayor and vice mayor knows that this is a requirement. Yeah, it just wasn't done. Yeah. But as I've said before, this incident with Jonia, if there's anything that's good that's going to come out of it, as I have said with the Vice Speaker, is that we fix these statutes and fill in the gaps so it won't happen to anybody, any village anymore. And I appreciate all of your proposals. I just think that if we all work together, we can come up with one that's going to be able to withstand constitutionality and legality. And then we can move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to further ask questions to the panel.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. From here on, I'm going to start with my immediate right. For each of the senators, if they have some inquiries or whatever they need to find out, we'll go ahead and do that now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor Savares and Mr. Sablan, Director Sablan. I just want to note that, so currently the law says that the Municipal Planning Council will appoint, if there's, in the absence of a mayor, after 240 days, right, prior to the election. Prior to 240 days, if there's a vacancy, it's automatic special election. So, and then there's also a law that the mayors are going to be the one to appoint this MPC, and no one's challenged that as being unconstitutional or anything, right? As far as you know?
It was signed into law.
Yeah, so was the other one.
Yes.
I mean, so's the other existing law that the MPC appoints the mayor in the
Right.
vacant, if there's a vacancy after 240 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's also law, also was signed into law. Right? Okay, and so on January 15, for me, what I'm waiting for is on January 15, the Vice Speaker sent an inquiry to the AG asking whether Mayor Blas could appoint the MPC while on administrative leave and incarcerated. On the same day, I also wrote a letter to the Attorney General asking formally for a legal opinion as to the status of incarcerated Jotnia Mayor Jesse Blas's inability, and I'm quoting from the statute here, inability or failure to perform, unquote, pursuant to 40110B of Title V of Guam Code Annotated. And that says that if the mayor has an inability or failure to perform, then, it kicks in that what's going to happen next. So that's why I feel like we want that question answered, and it hasn't been answered yet. So those inquiries were made since January, those requests for opinions were made since January 15. That's all I have for now, but thank you again for your input.
Yeah, Senator, that inability to function or perform the duties, that's in Title V, Chapter 40, under the Mayor's Council of Guam. Unfortunately, it is not in the Guam election provisions. And I think we have to do something to make it consistent. because it cannot be one or the other. The AG basically came back and says, we follow the Guam election provisions. Inability to perform or function is not one of those in the Guam Election Commission. It's only in the Mayor's Council's statute. And that's what I tried to ask the AG, and they couldn't give an answer.
Well, I thought they opined that according to the Title III Guam Election Code,
they
that
said the election
it did not
commission-
meet any of
Yeah,
those criteria.
right,
So
right.
now we want to know, according to the Title V, whether it meets that criteria.
Okay.
That's what we want to know. And at the time that the AG had opined, the circumstances were not very clear. For example, he wasn't on, I don't know whether he was on leave or, whether those
well,
things
he
had
was
changed or
already
not.
in detention at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Vice Speaker, go ahead.
Yeah, if we can just
Okay,
provide testimony on all three bills, and maybe
one
then the
time, okay.
questions will come up.
that seems, okay, efficient. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Director, Indiscipline, thank you, and President Savaras of the Mayor's Council, thank you for being here today to provide testimony and insight. I think this is very pertinent. We've been struggling with how to address this issue and also to ensure that the Mayor's Council is amenable to the statutes that we look to implement. And I appreciate your recommendation for the Mayor's Municipal Planning Council, for the mayors to appoint them and to have 2 alternate members should any of them leave. And I appreciate also the expeditious timeline. Rather than 60 days, we have to consider the vacancy to be immediately filled, perhaps, when the MPC member is unable to perform their duty. So I look forward to that. The Bill 262 addresses the procedures to fill a vacancy of the mayor and vacancies in the Municipal Planning Council. So I know that this has been quite a contentious topic in the past several months. We are waiting for the AG to opine on Bill 259, which provides an avenue for the mayor to be appointed by the Municipal Planning Council, verified by the Mayor's Council of Guam, and advice and consent of the legislature. What's also in that bill is the implementation of requiring every mayor to appoint a municipal planning council within 90 days after taking office. And some of the reinforcements to ensure that they do that is the director would come down if they don't appoint the MPC, and the director would appoint the MPC for the mayor if they do not perform that duty. So I'm thinking, if I'm a mayor, I don't want the director to come down and tell me who I can appoint for my village. So I figured that that would be enough reinforcement rather than to put a monetary fine towards the mayors, because we know that even though that they would be paying out of pocket, we know that the mayors also put a lot of their own hard-earned money back into the village. And so I hope if that would be okay, if the executive director would come down and point as a reinforcement rather than a fine.
Well, I was going to make comments on 262,
Okay.
and I'll come to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another issue on 262 was the 2/3 votes of the Mayor's Council of Guam. So Mayor Savaras mentioned something of a 7-vote body, but I don't think that was for the Mayor Council
That was
of Guam.
for a 10-member.
For the MPC.
MPC.
So I would like to know, on the 2/3 vote on the Mayor Council of Guam, what is your recommendation? Do you agree with this 2/3 vote, or should there be a specific concrete number?
Yeah. Okay. Vice Speaker, for your bill on 262, on page 2, you're amending current statute to say the remaining term shall be filled by a majority vote of the Municipal Planning Council of the municipality in which the vacancy occurs, subject to the approval of a legislatura. First, majority vote of who? Is it of the MPC members? within the MPC, you choose one of them to be? I think we have to clarify that there. Or is it anyone within the village? It's kind of, it's not very clear.
So in the amended version, we put if there's no vice mayor, this is referring to the vice mayor position, and the vacancy is less than 240 days before the next date of the general election, for mayors and vice mayors, the vacancy of the remaining term for vice mayors should be a majority vote of the municipal planning council of the municipality in which the vacancy occurs, subject to approval of legislatura. So really, it's more of a confirmation measure to go through for the vacancy of the vice mayor.
Okay.
So if there's I think that's what's being questioned right now.
Yes.
And
yes.
so really what I wanted to focus on, because that's in question, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
contention there, I really would wanted to see the movement of the MPC on item number 3, but if there's a recommendation for item number 2, please.
And on I noticed that you changed advice and consent and made it approval. So I don't know, is it different?
No, actually, when the bill was wrote up, we were having issues determining what advice and consent is, but advice and consent is basically the same thing as approval. So if it would make everyone feel a little bit more comfortable, we would inject the advice and consent.
Okay. And then on 3, where if the MPC is non-existent within the municipality, the executive director of the Mayor's Council of Guam shall be appointed as the acting mayor up to 90 calendar days. The acting mayor shall nominate members to fill all vacancies with the MPC of said municipality with the approval of 2/3 of the Mayor's Council of Guam. I think if we amended 40127 with the having the alternate members there, and if we really enforce the statute where the incoming mayor on his inauguration or her inauguration appoints his or her MPC, I don't think we're going to have a case where the MPC will be non-existent within any municipality. I appreciate the intent to have the ED of the Mayor's Council be appointed as the acting mayor up to 90 days. I mean, it's a savings, it's a cost savings. We wouldn't have to be paying another person a salary because the executive director already earns a salary, so it will be additional appropriation. Our problem would be in the 2/3 vote of the Mayor's Council of Guam. I believe that there is a bill now being proposed, because currently the statute says that the Mayor's Council of Guam is comprised of mayors and vice mayors. And there's 26 of them if you add it up. We've been looking at this, and we feel that in some cases there is not a parity, because in cases where you have a vice mayor, you have 2 votes. In cases where you only have a mayor, you only have 1 vote. So we're trying to work it to make it just the 19 villages. Each village has 1 vote. The mayors vote. The vice mayors will vote if the mayor is not there for their village, but it's still 19 votes. That would make it easier for us to get a quorum, because the statute says 2/3 of the members constitute a quorum. And we've been having a very difficult time trying to get 16 of them to come in on time to make a quorum. If we change it to 19, I believe it's down to 12, and you can easily get 12 votes either way for any action to be taken, but it's very difficult to get all those additional. And I'm sure Senator, Mr. Chair, you experienced this. You've been on the Mayor's Council of Guam, and you've seen how difficult sometimes it is to get the quorum and then to get the two-thirds vote. And so if it's two-thirds of the 19 villages, that'll probably work.
Okay, so your recommendation is to also implement a policy or to amend the statute and to ensure that each village, 19 villages, gets one vote.
Right.
Okay,
And even if they have
And
a
the
vice
two-thirds
mayor,
will
right,
work.
right.
right. So out of 26, we will have 19.
19 villages, yes.
Okay.
And where the vice mayor comes in to vote is if the mayor is
Is
not
absent?
there. Yes.
Okay, so the vice mayor can be
Can also be a voting member, but
Yeah,
only when
in
the
the
mayor
absence
is,
of the mayor.
yes.
voting member. Okay.
And we've talked about this at the council meeting, and there's no objection from the members. In fact, they wanted to see a fairer way, and one vote per village is the fairest way.
Okay. And so, just to reiterate on item 3, if municipal planning council is non-existent within the municipality, we can put this upon inauguration piece, and that would be the requirement. Are you okay with the acting mayor shall nominate members to fill all vacancies of the municipal planning council with the approval of 2/3 of the vote?
Yeah.
We're okay with
Yes.
that? Okay.
Either that, or you make the president of the council. It
Okay.
is either way. It doesn't matter.
Okay, and then, we try to incorporate additional MPC establishments timelines in the second piece in 4124. And we try to give 90 calendar days after taking office, but again, we're going to do immediately upon
Yeah.
inauguration.
I believe we need to shorten that because there's actions to be taken, approving their budget and things like that has to be done. I don't think they can wait 90 days to have a village have
Okay.
an approved budget.
And are you okay with the municipal planning council vacancy? We will amend this piece to word it properly, where we incorporate 10 official members and 2 alternate members upon immediate vacancy, right? Or, right, okay. And we'll make sure that the immediate vacancy is is defined, because that's the challenge we're having
Yes.
now, right? Okay. And then on the next page, oh, that's it. So I understand, so we'll make the corrections of the, in regards to your recommendations. And thank you very much, Mr. Executive Director and Madam President, for being here today to offer testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Terlaje, you have any?
Can I just clarify on the current law that mandates how a vacancy will be filled, a mayor's vacancy after 240 days? That's been in place since 2014, so 6 years. But and this allows for the municipal planning council to be the one that's going to fill that vacancy. I'm getting the
I think there's
feeling
never
that
been a
you don't-
challenge. There's never been a challenge because we've never used it.
Right, but you seem to not want that kind of language. Is that, am I interpreting that correctly? Because
Well, we need to-
when I first looked at it, thought, oh, this must be because that's what the mayors want, or the villagers want, that the municipal planning council in their village is going to be the one to appoint a replacement mayor.
Yeah.
But are you,
Back then, when we testified on that proposal, I think this was Senator Rory Respicious' bill, and we testified that yes, give the village an opportunity to select their own mayor and make the recommendation, and have the legislature do the advice and consent. The question of the authority of the governor was never brought up at that time,
all right,
and I guess it's never been brought up because we've never used this statute because we've never had the vacancy.
all right. Yes, so that was, it looks like the governor's authority was in 2010, and then it
Right.
was changed 2014, and
yes.
it's been in place for the last
Right,
6 years
right.
without challenge, and yeah, I agree. I thought the mayors
We've
and
never
the,
had to use it after it was changed.
yeah, but how do you, all right, well, it made sense to me that the villagers would want to be the one
Yeah.
that their municipal planning council appoints a
but-
vacant mayor.
But just like the Vice Speaker mentioned, we await the AG's opinion to see whether or not the provision of law as it is right now is organic.
I think that provision is not being challenged at this point either.
But it's almost the same provision as in 259.
Perhaps he had to
Yes.
say that,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
yeah. So then if you're saying that he might opine that, that this law that's been in place for the last 6 years is also inorganic, that's what you're saying. But yeah,
Maybe.
I guess I wanted to know how the mayors feel about that. I mean, which one do you prefer as mayors? I mean, what do you think the villagers and people in your village would want?
Yeah, well, if the MPC is going to come up with the recommendation and send it to the governor, we don't see any problems with that either, because it still has to come here for advice and consent. Yeah.
Are you saying that the mayors are in agreement with you on that they prefer?
Well, when we've been
As
trying to figure this thing out on the Jonia case, they mentioned, why couldn't we just go back to the way it was before? And we won't be in this position where the governor did the appointing.
I've been in office long enough to experience where the mayor of Mauricio had passed away, and the recommendation were the 3 names that came, and she didn't have a vice mayor. The recommendation was the 3 names recommended by the Municipal Planning Council went to the governor. And it's really, the governor can choose to appoint that person, one of the 3 that's recommended, or select someone on their own. And at the same, then a few years later, before the change, 2 vice mayors of Agate had passed away. And because they were vice mayors, still a recommendation went in, and fortunately enough, there was an upcoming general election. It wasn't a mayor's election, but it was the next general election. And so the appointment from the governor came, kind of like happened at the same time. And the governor at the time said, well, let the people choose at the general election. So that's how it was done prior to the change. And we never really had problems as mayors in other villages. We let the recommendation come in, and the mayor's council actually helped. And, colleagues, we all helped each other, made sure that went through with their MPC, and waited for the governor, the sitting governor at the time, to make that appointment. Again, we continue to say that Jonia is an isolated case where the incident, happened, but I don't know, Mr. Chairman, you were there those 3 times when we had incidents with the vacancies, and I think it went smoothly.
But my question is, despite having that experience, the law was changed
The law was changed
about
in 2000.
4 years later,
Yes.
or somewhere in that 4 years, the law was changed, and the mayors seemed to be in support of the change in the law, and it looked like people, the village must have also been in support. And I guess that's what I'm trying to gauge today,
And
because my guess is that the people of Jonia appreciate being the one to
Make the selection.
select.
yes.
Yes.
And I was here for that time when they changed the law. In fact, we testified and we supported it.
Yes.
And if it is can pass muster, organic muster, then we still support the way the provision is. I think what we can do instead of not having the people of any village being able to select who their mayor will be and have somebody else do the appointing, is remove the 240-day rule.
Perhaps.
And that way, they're going to have to vote.
Right.
I mean,
Thank you.
It's additional expenditure, but you're giving the people the power to select their own mayor instead of somebody naming for
Thank
them.
you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just wanted to kind of because I heard that, one of the senators have gone to the mayor's council and was recommending that the the mayor's council should appoint a mayor, a temporary mayor. And I was totally against that because I always feel that whoever is going to be chosen to be the mayor of that particular district, it should come by the people of that district. So I really went against that. I didn't, I didn't want to put it out because that was just a proposal from this one senator. But I would totally have challenged that because, the people of that residence should have that choice. Just before we go to the other senators here, Mr. Director and Madam President, I just wanted to, going back to the situation in Zonia, and you do have the numbers of Municipal Planning Council in place, right? The 10 members that have been, chosen by, not chosen, but, the Mayor Blas already assigned that assignment, designation and appointment, right? So what I'm gonna, in the situation of Zonia, how are you going to set up the rules in as far as how are you going to come out with a temporary mayor? Are you going to come out with those that are running for Zonia mayor? Or are you just going to go and kind of just have the Municipal Planning Council get the listing of Zonia residents who they would like to be mayor? Those are the things. That's the thing that we want clarification on if you initiate the rules on how they're going to choose the temporary mayor.
No, actually, Mr. Chair, we don't have to initiate any rules. It's already in statute. Right now, just like the Vice Speaker, we're also awaiting because she requested for the opinion on whether or not the mayor can appoint from detention. And so we're waiting for that before we even, if he can, then we will have the president swear them in as members. We already have, you've declined and another member has declined, so the mayor has requested to have 2 other people appointed, and so we send those letters over to him. But the statute already says what's going to happen. I mean, if it's after March 8th, then the MPC will send those names to the legislature for advice and consent. They wouldn't be appointing an acting mayor. They will send the name over to the legislature for advice and consent. Now, if it's before March 8th, let's say the trial is over and whatever his status is, if he's acquitted, then he's still the mayor. If he's not acquitted and he's removed from office, then the election commission has to declare a vacancy and we will have a special election.
What I'm getting at, Mr. Director, is that, there's 6, 7 individuals that are running for mayor of Zonia. What I'm saying is that choice going to be from those that are running for mayor or within the residents of Zonia?
And that's the point I brought up from the Vice Speaker's bill is majority vote. I don't know, majority vote of the MPC, the current existing members, or is it anybody? It doesn't define that in the proposal. Even in the current statute, it doesn't define it either. And so, do we have to come up with criteria? I'm sure we do, but I don't think we want to limit it to just the people appointed as MPC members to have their names sent over to the legislature.
So my understanding is that it's going to be an open thing for the MPC to do that.
I
right?
think that's the fairest way.
Oh, okay.
Even current statute does not say. Yeah.
Senator Mars?
Half a day, and good to see both of you here. So we've covered really some of the thoughts that I had. So I just wanted to give a few comments. Given our recent work on fixing the gaps of filling vacancies and ensuring that the Municipal Planning Council is in place and so forth, it was important to me to come and attend the public hearings for these bills. I especially wanted to listen to the mayors and the mayor council, their understandings, their experiences, and perspectives, because that's just so important to hear on the ground what has been happening and your understandings of everything. So I am glad that I attended because you each had a lot to share. You've pointed out that this is an isolated case, but also that it's one that we're using to find some of those gaps and to be addressing them, as these bills are attempting to do. And you offered many solutions for us to consider. And some of the issues with the bills as written that can help strengthen them. We also get to hear about the work of the Municipal Planning Council and understand that in some, if not most, villages, they are very active and they're a very important part of the work that the mayor's office does. So that, for me, was really important to hear, because I think a lot of people on Guam perhaps are not familiar with that part of the mayor's office. And so this is maybe something new for them to be hearing about. So there's that tendency perhaps for people who aren't as aware about the Municipal Planning Council to have been thinking throughout all of the discussion over the last several weeks, to be thinking lightly of them, to not understand the seriousness to which they approach their work and their level of familiarity with the village and the work of the village. I'm hoping that what you've been able to share here and in our discussions before the hearing, that helps people understand that planning council more so and understand the role that they can be playing in this filling of the vacancies or appointing acting mayors and so forth. So I really appreciate this hearing. I really appreciate the authors who have worked on these bills. I think all of it together has really provided a lot of insight into how to think about these situations that have come up more recently. So I just want to thank all of the authors. I want to thank the chair, and I want to thank both of you for coming and taking the time to help us understand some of these issues, concerns, and perspectives from the mayor's point of view. Sijus Masi.
Thank you very much, Senator. If there are no other testimony, we are done with bill number 260-5. Dash 35, 262-35, 263-35. In addition to that, if there's any written testimony that Angel or Madam President you want to provide later on to invigorate the process, you can send it to my office at 140 Aspinall Avenue, Bridge Point Building, Hagåtña, Guam 96910. The time is currently 5:55.
Mr. Chair, I don't think we've discussed 263 yet.
Huh?
263,
263?
temporary vacancy.
I thought we were gonna include 262, 263.
That's in 262, but you also have your own bill, 263, which is
Okay.
different from 262. And if we go to 263, temporary vacancy, 45 consecutive days. Imagahaga Guahan shall appoint an acting mayor with the advice of the Municipal Planning Council of the affected village and consent of Legislatura in Guahan within 30 days of the temporary vacancy being identified. My question is, who's identifying the vacancy?
Who's going to identify the vacancy?
Yes. Is it going to be the Election Commission? Is it going to be the Mayor's Council of Guam? What entity is going to identify the vacancy?
That's a very good question. That was one of the questions that was brought up on the floor, because this is one of the provisions that was included in the bill that we did pass. So in that bill, we did designate, because we thought there was also a gap in other statutes as to who's going to make a determination that it meets this criteria.
Right.
So in that bill, we had put it on the Guam Election Commission, but who do you recommend?
We can certify that there is a vacancy through these provisions and then send it to the election commission
You
and
mean
then
the
declare
mayor's
the
council?
vacancy.
Mayor's
Yeah,
council?
We certify that there is, and then we can send it to the election commission and they can declare the vacancy.
All right, so yeah, that's those are the things we consider, whether the mayor's council or the municipal planning council again, or the Guam Election Commission. So your recommendation is the mayor's council?
Yes, yes.
It should be the mayor's council because they are certifying officers for the council, and which encompasses all the villages. And then they would certify that there is a vacancy and then send that certification to election commission.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I think we initiated a bill to mention the Guam Election Commission
Right.
to make that determination, but, Madam President, if that's your recommendation, we can always change that.
And then the other question that I have is, it's a temporary vacancy. So let's say the person is incapacitated because of health issues or detention or whatever. They're still on the payroll as a mayor. What's the compensation of an acting mayor? And where is that compensation going to come from?
Can you repeat the last piece of what you were stating?
If the temporary vacancy, that person is because of health, because they're on a long-term vacation, because they're in detention or incarcerated, they're still the acting mayor. I mean, they're still the elected mayor. So when we appoint an acting mayor based on this provision of law, if it becomes law, the mayor is still getting their salary. So where do we get the salary for the acting mayor?
I think that's also a good question. That was also, I thought, just a question we did not answer when we talked about this bill before, but it's because we're having the hearing now, it is a question that lingers, because I think we need to look to you, because you're the ones who know. It seemed obvious, of course, if a vice mayor fills the position, he's going to get paid. Anyone who's working might get paid, but anyone who's not working, for example, just a volunteer on the municipal planning council, they may not get paid for the rest of the term. And that was not clear. And if you have any recommendations, I'd welcome it. Thank you.
I know that in the vice speaker's bill, if it's just that certain short span of time, if the executive director is appointed acting mayor, there's no need for additional funding because he or she will be having a salary anyway. But in this case, where it's a temporary vacancy and the elected mayor still is receiving a salary, so how do we compensate an acting mayor? We need to have an appropriation.
Well,
Or
if you
do we make it a voluntary?
If you do have a vice mayor, we don't have a problem now.
Right.
The vice mayor is going to become an acting
But we want
mayor.
to cover all the law so we don't have to come up back into these situations again where we have to start questioning what we're going to do.
So just give us your insight how we're going to pay this acting mayor if there's no vice mayor. And, we'll strengthen the bill based on your recommendation.
Maybe if they're a retiree, they can just take it on a volunteer basis to be an acting mayor.
Or maybe we can just get the director of the mayor's council to
Or
be the
it
acting
could be
mayor.
a rotation on the municipal planning council members every 30 days until this temporary vacancy, until the mayor comes back.
Yeah, so these are ideas that we can come up with without spending more money.
Can you restate that, Madam President? What did you recommend?
Or my recommendation would be to get the members of a municipal planning council, they are appointed by the mayor, to do a rotation as acting mayor. Might be every 15 days, you have 10 mayors. Every 15 work days, there will be a different acting mayor until the return of the mayor or to come back.
And the other suggestion aside from that is, every mayor has an administrative assistant who knows the ins and outs of that office. That's what mayors do now. If they're the ones that don't have vice mayors, if they're going to be gone for a certain amount of time, they appoint the administrative assistant to be the person responsible for the village, sign documents, certify funds and all of that. There could also be a provision that instead of having to appoint an acting mayor and
There we go. You
fine,
just solved the problem of not having
do
a,
the AA,
for
the AA way.
yeah, because and you're right. An AA in a mayor's office is full of knowledge on the protocols and whatever administrative that needs to be done. So I would agree with your recommendation.
Yes.
To have the AA be the
And not only
acting
that,
mayor.
Mr. Chair, we also protect the employees that are there. Because if you put in an acting mayor, what's going to stop that acting mayor from terminating everybody in that office and hire his or her own people?
But if you have a member from the MPC rotating out, you wouldn't have to,
Yes.
you wouldn't have to change
that
the
option
employees,
or
you
the
would keep
AA
that.
option. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
So are we done with 263? Because I thought we, in the beginning, we were going to include all the three bills.
No. Well, we had to testify on your bill.
For sure.
Yeah. So we're done.
We're done.
Yeah.
Well, let me repeat myself, Mr. Director. There's been no other testimony. We are done with bill number 26035, 26235, and we will have another day for 263-35. Or we're done with 263-5. Okay? We're done with 263-5.
Unless you want to see us again. Yes, we basically provided testimony for all three bills. And we thank all of you, and if we can probably combine all three and make it into one proposal.
I'd like to thank all of you for your participation on today's public hearing on bill number 260-35, 262-35, 263-35 COR. And if you have any written testimony, you can email it. I thought I mentioned this already. To my address, email address, Senator Pedo at senatorjpterlaje.com, or hand deliver it to my office at 140 Espanola Avenue, Bridgepoint Building, Agana, Guam, 96910. And the time now is, I mentioned 5:55, so now it's 5:57. No. 6:08. The Committee on Public Safety, Border Safety, Military and Veterans Affairs, Mayor's Council of Guam, Infrastructure and Public Transit is now adjourned.